The Gemara continues, and we were speaking about if a husband says, I divorced my wife, if he's believed, because if he wants, he can give her a get right now. And then we had a discussion whether if it doesn't help for the past, should at least help for the future. And the reason why we need a mig and all that is because generally speaking, if he did divorce his wife, people would know because people like to talk. And if something like that happens, it's exciting news. In fact, it's probably more exciting than somebody gets married. So the fact that nobody heard about it, that in itself is a chazaka that nothing did happen. So you need something to override that chazaka, which is a migri. If you don't believe me, I could give her a get right now. So therefore we believe. So Gemara gives another story here. Says the Gemara, we are it's about 8 lines from the top of the page. Kuf lamed hey yom aleph. Last word of the line is ahu. Ahu dahavi muchziglan. We established, or we had a chazaka. The leslan achi. This woman was married to this young man, and we understood that there were no brothers there. There was no brother. In other words, if her husband predeceases her, she's a free woman. But on his deathbed, he says, the leslan achi. I don't have any brothers. What's the shaila? What are we worried about? What we on our own should be choishes that maybe there's a brother out there and we shouldn't let her get married. First of all, I don't understand. First of all, it's accepted, that you had no brothers. And the lesson. Plus, he said, as his deathbed, I don't have. And generally, the person on his deathbed said the truth. The story over here is a little bit different. There's rumors out there. The Ika Eidim b'Medina Sayam, the Yadid Isla Achi. There's a rumor out there, no evidence, but there's a rumor out there that there are Eidim somewhere abroad that actually know that she has a brother, that he has a brother, and therefore she cannot get married. So the question is, we're muhzik in this town here. We always thought that he had no brothers. Plus, on his deathbed, he tells us he has no brothers. But there are Eidim. There's a rumor they're Eidim. Should we go and wait till we find out whether these Eidim exist or not? So Rabbi Yosef said back, why? Hash to me is unless they come on. The Eidim are not here. Nobody presented themselves, or because a rumor says there are Eidim somewhere, we're going to stop her from getting remarried. Why? Lav Hainu de Rabbi Chanina, isn't this exactly the story of Chanina? What's the Rabbi Chanina we had in Ksubis? The din is that if a woman was kidnapped, taken captive by Goyim, she cannot marry a Goyim because we are choishes that maybe they were they assaulted her, and therefore they can't get married. So what happened was Shmuel's daughters were taken in captivity. So the Shmuel's daughters were very smart. They said to the captors, why did the captors take them captive? To sell them and make money. So the daughters said to them, if they see you, they won't give any money for you. You stay away. We'll walk into the shul and talk to everybody, and we'll get a decent size, sum together. So the captors waited outside, and nobody saw them, and they went into the shul and they said, Shvua anu. Each one said separately. So they had a migli. Pesha asa, pesha hita. They said we were taken captive, but nothing happened between us and the captors. Even though then one of them ended up marrying one of the captors, and that was Mori. We say always Mori, the daughter of Bas, Bas part of the Shmuel. So anyway, so they said, but there were Eidim outside that know that they were taken captive. It doesn't matter. We look at what we have in front of us. In front of us, do we have any Eidim that they were taken captive? No. So we believe them that they're not coming and they can marry anybody they want. So the same Rabbi said here, a room with their Eidim. So what? Because Eidim somewhere in the east or there, somewhere far away, we should go ahead and ask it. No such thing. Abaye said, what are you comparing? Over there, the whole thing is a chash. In fact, it's a very remote chash because we believe that most Yiddish women are not going to make themselves available to the goyim. They're going to fight them off and try as hard as possible that nothing should happen between them. Right? They don't want to have a znus for them. So therefore, it's the whole thing is a chash rabban anyway, and therefore you want to asa because maybe there's eidim or no. That we're not going to be mach. That's what Abaye says. But in our case, and of course, our case, we don't learn the next part, even though the Shem do put it. Nekel be'eshes ish. Over here, we're talking about a woman that has to wait for a yavam, and you want to be mekel and say, nah, let her marry anybody she wants, where there's a love, and you want to say, why I ate him? Who killed him? What are you comparing? Here it is a love. This is chash. Abaye again. Abaye is very strict with these women. He says, she can't get married until we find those Eidim. Now, what's a Rumors means that more than we had a whole Gemara in Ksubah. What's the definition of a rumor? Rumor is that keep on people talking about. Yeah. It's a lot of people saying it. Let's put it this way: it's not just one or two people. As the Rashbam says, no, but this is a question of Isa. It's not Mammon. This is a question of Isa, and as the Rashbam says, "B'nei ha'ir hazois." The whole city is talking. Very interesting Rashbam that I have to tell you here because it's a big chakira, and I don't remember they even bring this Rashbam, but the Bach sort of alerts a little bit. When we say a Yavama, how do we understand a Yavama? A Yavama has to marry her brother-in-law. So we normally say, and for her to marry a friend is Isa Yavam Lashuk. The title says you're not allowed to marry somebody else, so therefore there's a lav. We learn in Kedusha of Gimel there when a husband dies or the wife dies, or basically when the husband dies, she's now free because there's no longer any ties. Misla Bal Menolan because there's nothing anymore to continue to Asa. So when there's a Yavam, how do we understand it? Is the Pshat, I remember Rabbi Engel talked about this, is the Pshat that she's no longer a married woman because the husband died? That ended. A new Issa kicks in that she now has to marry the Yavam, and if she doesn't, there's an Issa Yavam L'Shuk. Yeah, they had a machlek of Zika, but if another way of learning is no, because the brother-in-law steps in the place of her husband, the heter of Eishes Ish did not go away. It's still there because it's even though this is a little bit weaker, but it continues the Isa. Because look at and Mignav Kamina. If she let's say Mizana is Isa Chanek or just Isa Lav. So look at Rashbam here. The Rashbam, Eish is Ish, a very important Rashbam. The first line is Nakel, about 10, 12 lines from the bottom of the page. Nakel, Eish is Ish, you want us to be leaned by a married woman? Bitmia. The Ika Isa Chanek. What Isa Chanek? There's only Isa Lav if she's now a widow and she has to marry her brother-in-law. The Isa, if she marries a stranger, it is Isa Lav. The Rashbam says Isa Chanek. So the Bach says the Rashbam didn't mean it. He meant that she has a chazaka till now. Till now, she was a married woman and she would have received chenek. And chenek is just a euphemism for being a married woman. And so therefore, and she wasn't permitted to marry anybody else at that time. So right now, we still cannot say she's permitted to marry because maybe she's a yivam. That's what more or less I'm paraphrasing what the Bach says. But the other Rishonim who use the same words as the Rashbam. And it sounds like that they take a hold is an Easter of chenek. In other words, that the heter of the husband dying does not happen if there's a brother-in-law in waiting in line until there's a chalitza or until there's a yibum. Which is and this is the Rashbam right here. Very interesting. Okay, back to the Gemara. So then we said, what happens if one of the brothers? So there's Reuben and Shimon. Suddenly Shimon comes along and says, "You see this guy here? He's our brother." And Reuben says, "What are you talking about? We don't have any brothers." So what we said was he divided the state into two parts. And then Shimon, who claims that Levi is a brother, gives to Levi the part that he has from Levi. In other words, they had 3 fields, each one got 1.5 fields. He gives a half a field, and Reuben, his half that to go to Levi, let Levi prove that he's a brother. And then we said, however, that if Levi dies, the half that Levi received from Shimon does not go back to Reuben, to get a chelik because supposedly he's a brother. It goes only to Shimon. And then we said, but what happens if Levi suddenly got a big inheritance and then Levi dies? In that case over there, maybe you have to split it amongst all the brothers, as we'll see in a minute. Or so the Gemara says, yeah, because and what's the logic in that? If Reuben says I'm not a brother, what's the logic? So the Gemara says, he's not believed. My company. What's the other brother say? Okay, Shimon says Levi's our brother. Reuben, what does Reuben say? If he says yes, he's our brother, I agree with you. Then so how come Levi only gets a share in Shimon's allotment? Why doesn't he also take away from Reuben? If Reuben admits that yes, Levi's our brother, then Reuben should also contribute. They should divide the estate into 3 parts, and Reuben should get 1, Shimon should get 2, and Levi gets a third. Navas must be the Kahamri Labachenu. He objects. He says, no such thing. He's not our brother. So why, if Levi dies and he got a big Yerusha, does Reuven's get a chelik in it? He's a nice brother. The Rosh says an interesting thing. Mekan, even though the Shulchan when they quote it, they don't quote the Rosh, they quote some other Rishonim or not on the Gemara. The Rosh says of him, Mekan. If Reuven says to Shimon, I know I owe you $100 here, and Shimon says, no, you don't, then Reuven does not have to pay Shimon. But Reuven does Baldin Kimei Eben Domin. Reuven says, I owe you $100, but Shimon, supposedly the lender, says, you don't owe me any money. No, I never lent you any money. Then Reuven doesn't have to pay. And it's not even a din in Mechila. Reuven has to pay. And the nafkamina, if it's Mechila, not is, do you have to be Yotzi Dei Shemayim and still give? If it's not a, if it's and why do they say that right here? What's the Gemara saying here? Shimon says, yes, definitely, Levi's our brother, which means that Reuven, you have a chilek. In other words, Levi owes you money. And Reuven says, no, he's not my brother. He doesn't owe me anything. And the Gemara is a pshita. So why should Reuven get anything? But Shimon and Levi both agree that there's a brother. And Levi, if Levi is a brother, then the Yerusha that he got after he died definitely goes to Reuven as well. He owes Reuven whatever Reuven's share of that Yerusha is. And yet the Gemara says of him the pshitas. But if Reuven says, I'm not, in other words, you don't owe me anything, he doesn't owe him. The Gemara, we need it. The Ka'amri ain't on a yoid. This is a case of like body v'shema. Shimon says, definitely he's our brother. He owes you money. And Reuven says, I don't know if he owes you money or not. So therefore, it's a body v'shema, body. We have a machlekes in the Gemara where the body v'shema, body adif or not. And let's bring it right here. And halachah is a body shem, body lav adif. That you cannot take money out of the body. That he does not have to, even though that Shimon says definitely he's our brother. He should yashin with us. So Shimon is the demander, is the plaintiff. Reuven, who is the nitva, says, I don't know. And that's how we limp shot the Mishnah. And the Mishnah says, you don't take any money from Reuven. That means body is not strong enough to extract money. Let's bring it out from it. So that argument, having subas of your base, which way we go? If body shem, body of lavadif. Now, there's a big machlekes that showing the long traces, and many are showing the, are there different kinds of shemas? Are there different kinds of shema in Bava Kama as well? In other words, there's a shema where you should have known. If I say you owe me $100, you don't know. What do you mean you don't know? You should know. But in this case here, the brother was never told by his father. Reuven was never told by his father that they have a brother. How was he supposed to meant to know? This is called a good shema. So, and yet the Gemara is comparing it to the machlekes there, where I ask you for $100, and you say you don't know. So the Rishonim, those Rishonim hold that don't agree with Taisa say, you see clearly to me there's no difference what kind of shema it is. A body is not strong enough to take away from a shema. Anyhow, Amar Rabba says, Rabba, let's bring it out from here. Let's bring it out from here. That money will be out chalam any day. If I say you owe me $100, and you say you don't know, the fact that I'm saying with conviction doesn't mean anything. I have to bring a star. I got to bring agent. I got to do something, unless you concede that you owe me the money. All right, from here, because we're saying that Reuven says I don't know, and Reuven doesn't have to pay the Yerusha. Abai says no right from there. Even though you might be right in halacha, but you can't bring a proof from there. You know why you're over here different? It's not Levi who's making the demand here. It's Shimon who's making the demand. If Levi, the new brother, would have come along and said, I'm the brother, if he would have been the one who's doing all the time, I'm the brother, he's a Teveya. And Reuven says, I don't know. We don't know what the din would be in our Mishnah. Our Mishnah talking about where not the Teveya, but Shimon saying on behalf of Levi. Machlekes is showing what exactly Levi himself is saying. Is Levi saying, I don't know? Or is Levi actually saying, yes, I am, but he's only saying it because Shimon is fighting his cause. Since Shimon is not the one who's Negeya here, it's not his, and he's the Teveya, it's different. It's not really a body Shema case. Taking one further, Meg, and Rabba has a question. Okay, what happens if Levi dies? He gives back to Shimon the portion that Shimon gave to Levi. We also said that if Levi dies and he got a Yerusha from elsewhere, you divide it equally amongst the brothers. We're talking about a case where the brother says, I don't know. Reuben says, I don't know. What happens if Levi took the property for the half of property from Shimon, and he invested time, money, effort, and he improved the property. The property is worth $100 when Shimon gave it to Levi, his chelik in Yerusha, but now the property is worth $500, and Levi dies. Do we treat the extra $400 like it's all part of Shimon's thing and it just goes right back to Shimon? Or do we say, no, that windfall is like nechosim habo mokamacha, like came from another place altogether, and the Mishnah says clearly, you equally divide it amongst both brothers. Which one is it? Says you want to buy your other shevach sheshav like improved on its own ma'u. So the Gemara says, "B'shevach hamagia l'ksafim l'kbalach." Now we had this expression before. Normally we type "shevach hamagia l'ksafim" means that if it's already ready to be cut off, in other words, it no longer needs the land, then it's not considered part of the land, and for sure it's like no different than a windfall from elsewhere. That's how most Rishonim learn. Just like it came from a windfall from elsewhere. Our question is, talking about over here, a shavach that is not, that is still growing and needs the land. Is it considered part of the land and therefore it should all go back to Shimon? Or we say still it adds value and we should split it equally between Reuven and Shimon. Going dikla we had before a palm tree that became thicker, where even according to Chachamim, the B'chai gets another portion over. This is the original thing, just thicker. Or Arav Asaka Shirton, or let's say that the water brought on much richer soil now. So it came by itself. What's it in? Teku. Interesting, the Rashbam does not learn that way we just said, which is the normal pshat. The Rashbam learns Magia L'Ksafim means that the guy put money in. He put money in and he invested. And versus that L'Ksafim means that it happened by itself, which is not the normal wording that the Gemara uses. Anyhow, the Gemara continues. We have a concept called a shchibana. Shchibana is normally a shchibana when he distributes his wealth. He doesn't want to distribute it while he's alive. He doesn't want it to take effect until after he dies. The problem is once he's dead, he can't give anything away. It's not his to give away. Somebody asked it already. So therefore, Chachamim made a special takana called Tzavah Shchibana. Shchibana gives instructions that things should take place after he dies. Chachamim say that they all take effect, because otherwise we're going to exacerbate the situation and we're going to bring his death. If he feels that he's useless, that he's right, as if he's dead already. Exactly, and then we'll learn that in the Gemara later in a few blocks. So, what happened the following? But if he writes a star, if he writes a star contracts instead of just giving instructions, but he writes a star like a will, but he doesn't call it a will, but he writes a star, then that star, and he says, I don't want to take effect till after. The person says, I don't want to take effect till after he dies. Then it's ineffective because he doesn't want to be effective while he's alive. And then when he wants the star to be effective, he couldn't have written the star at that time because he's dead, and therefore there's nothing to happen there. So the Mishnah is as follows: Misha makes a person dies. V'nimtzaz daitiki. We found a daitiki. A daitiki is like a last will and testament, and it says there dotahei. There's a certain lashon we'll see more later. Sorry, no, not a coin. Koi, yeah. Dotahei koi. We'll see more later exactly what the word means. So the Gemara. They found they found it tied to his hip. Why didn't you say tied to his hip? Because otherwise, the Rishonim say could be somebody wrote it. Remember, he died. He died already. He died already, and obviously, somebody else wrote it and forged the things whatever it did. But now that it's tied to his hip, then that means he wrote it when he was alive. So we know that it happened when he was alive. That's the word. It is worthless. He wrote a star. No, but instead of just saying it, he wrote it down on a contract. And the Rosh Teva says, I want this to take effect. Is what do you call it? Should I? It's not effective because he wrote it in the star, so we're no longer the tzavah shchibana kicks in. This is a normal case of a star, and the star he only wants to take effect after the person died, and he star lachamisa. What about zika ba la'acha? What about zika ba la'acha? If he, let's say, there's a daitike written, and the name on it was Yankel. I'm giving you my house. And then, the big Machleid Shem had a learn pshat. The Rashbam learned pshat. He then went to Yehuda. Said, Yehuda, you know what? See the star here that I said I'm giving the house to Yankel? I changed my mind. A shchibana can change his mind to the very end. You can, how many people keep on changing their wills. So he said, that star that said in the house I'm giving to this, he said, I am giving it to you. And he said, I want you to be zeichet. He told somebody, I want you to be zeichet on behalf of Reuben. Whatever, on behalf of somebody else. I'm changing my mind. I'm changing, even though the name written on this piece of paper was somebody else's name, but I'm saying I'm changing it. I want you, this house that's written on this paper, I want you, and I'm giving verbal instructions. Then, when that person was entitled to inherit. The person not entitled to inherit, the vod of kayamin, carry out his words. Why? Because this is divrei shchibana, which is what we said before. Divrei shchibana, ksuvin u'mesurin dami. The same rule as ksuvin u'mesurin. Thinking about I said, I learned. If he wrote down, I want this to make him and to happen and it occur. Okay, that's a daitiki. Um, so in other words, even though you didn't write on it, it should take effect today. In other words, it's going to take effect only after the person dies. Because while you're alive, in fact, the Shechina recovers, everything goes right back to him. The fact is, he can change his mind all the time. He's an ayah, he didn't give it to the other person. According to the Rashbam, if you gave the daitiki to another person, you can no longer change your mind. Other Shem hold, even if you gave the will to other people, it does not take effect until after the person dies, and you still could change your mind. So, the matana. What's the matana we say? It has a definition of matana, and you want it to be effective. Kosher, you have to write kosher kosaba mahayim. You have to say it takes effect at least retrospectively from today. Otherwise, if it doesn't, it's a regular star matana. There's no takan chamiveh. If you wanted to take effect only after the person dies, how can it take effect? Ella mahayim. So every star matana you tell me has to say mahayim malach. Listen, I'm giving you matana, but I don't want it to. I don't want you to have the house until after, until my passing. This person says. So, is that the only way to do it? You have to write mahayim malach hamisa. What happened? You write ma'achshav. I'm giving you matana from now. I have a matana. I'm gonna buy. He says, "Harikamer, ezi matnas body shehikim matzav shchivana." Where do we have a matnas body which can replicate shchivana? Right? Because this is one of the ways of giving to your daughter a chelik in Yerusha. You give her a matnas body. There's others, chatzi zachar and other things. But if you do the matnas body, then there's no problem. But we don't want it to take effect until after the person passes away. So how do you have how do you marry both worlds together? The loikoni elachamisa, kosher kosher by mahayim elachamisa. If you're right, mahayim elachamisa, which basically means is that's one way looking. No, the other way looking at it is that I have life tendency in your property. In other words, as if the paytas, as we'll see in a minute, as if the paytas are mine and the house is yours. So I have life tendency while this person is still alive. Big malchek is a sheni when we say that this matna shchivna is this matna's body is treated like a matna shchivna. Does that mean the person still has the right to change his mind like a matna shchivna? So the Rashbam says kid, but not completely. Kid, that doesn't take effect really till after the person dies. But of course, this person cannot change his mind anymore because once you gave him matna's body, that's it. Matna's body, too late. Other Shem hold is completely like a shchivna. That is that this kind of a will, you can also change your mind. Yossi Rabbi Rabbi excited to be Rabbi who sat in the porch of Rav. Yossi decided to come much made Rabbi Yossi name Rabbi Yechon. He said, Kisvu, I want you to write down the Tanu, and I want you to give Mana $100 for my Nechasim, playing to that person. The Mason, he died before they had a chance to write down the star. Ain't Kosh V'Noisen. Why not? This is a Tzavah Shchimra. No, he didn't say give $100 a person. He says write an ashtar to give $100 a person. That means he wanted to have the normal dinim of a normal transaction, but they didn't yet write the star, which means, but by the time they want to write the star, he passed away. There's nothing to write. Maybe he wasn't. Maybe he didn't finish. He didn't yet make up his mind. The only way he wanted to, he didn't want the deal to take place unless it was recorded in a contract, a normal transaction. And a normal transaction can't take it, and you want to take effect only after the person dies. But once the person dies, you can do something like I can make a kinyan. It shouldn't take effect for 30 days from now. But the word is in 30 days from now, if I want to give it right then and there, I could have stood there and give it to you in your hands. I'm not going to be around, so I'm giving it to you now to be over here. Once the person is dead, he couldn't write the star at that time. So I want the star to take effect at the time when I can't do it. Doesn't work. You be careful what Rabbi Yechon said, because this is the halacha. Rav Shizbi says the same thing, but it was the other way around. Rabbi Lazar is the one who made this din Amra. But Rabbi Yechon, his Rebbe, said it's a good halacha, follow it. I don't know. He's like, it makes more sense. If she was the version, because I'm just like Rabbi Lazar said it. It's Rabbi Yechon, Rabbi Lazar. So Rabbi Yechon, his Rebbe, to say, yes, he's right. You need Rabbi Lazar to confirm that his Rebbe has said a good halacha. Number one. But furthermore, Toshma, we learned that Rabbi Lazar said, it was Rabbi Lazar who actually said this halacha. Look how the Gemara is so careful. I remember Meir Tzibul was once for bringing with us, and he said, like for a whole night. We're learning the beginning of Bava Metzia. In the beginning of Bava Metzia, it talks about, the Gemara says, who's the author of our Mishnah? Lema de Leike Ben Nanas. So who cares? Ben Nanas, Ben Zoyme, Rashim Ben Yochai. The Gemara spends a whole page working out who the Tana is. Lema Leike Ben Nanas, look at this, and so on and so forth. And he was telling us how important it is that every word in learning is so important. And even the one who said it, and the one who didn't say it. Like right over here, the Gemara, the whole Shakataya, did Rabbi Lazar say it, did Rabbi Yechida say it? No care, we don't care about the halach itself. We agree the halach is halach. Let's say we want to know who said it and who confirmed. Now we bring another raya. Toshma, the svar is not good enough. The logic that Rabbi Yechida would what do you call, confirm his student's version rather than the student confirming his Rebbe. There's no like Rabin Mashmei Rabbi. Rabin said in Rabbi, how the Yedim should know. Sheshalach Rabbi Lazar legoyle. Rabbi Lazar sent to the people in exile, Meshum Rabbeinu, in the name of Rabbeinu. Rabbeinu normally is a Rab. So Rabbi Lazar, interesting. I told you, Rabbi Lazar was in Babel for a while, and he learned by everybody. Rabbi Yehuda learned by Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Lazar learned by them and by Rabbi Yechon, who basically spent most of his years. Shchivmera she'amar kisvu v'tru manu lepleni. Write down and give $100 to that person. V'meis, and if it died, ain't kaishim reason why. So in this case, Rabbi Lazar is saying it in the name of Rab. So Rabbi Lazar said it, and Rabbi Yechon stepped in, but this time he said, Ti bodek. Check it out. Well, check what out? Mighty bod, what do you have to check out? The guy said, Kisu v'tru, write it down the star and give the money. What do you have to check out? So Abdimi came along and he explained, he says two halachas, but from a second halacha, we know exactly what Rabbi Yechon meant when he said Ti bodek. He said, first of all, he said, Daitiki mevatelas daitiki. That now remember, in order to be a shchivmara, there's two criteria. Number one is the guy is dying, on his deathbed. Number two is he has to distribute his entire estate. If he distributes 95% of his estate, that means he still thinks he's going to survive. Why is he keeping 5%? That means it's not a shchivmara. He in his own mind thinks he's going to continue living, so the takana doesn't step in. So he has to first of all give away his entire estate, plus it has to be on his deathbed. So, but he can always change his mind. So daiting mavatat, he knows a later will can cancel an earlier will. That number one. Number two is write down and give $100 to that person. This is what we see. This is the checking out what Rabbi Yechon meant. There's two possible reasons why the Shchivana says recorded in the contract. One is because he wants it to be a normal transaction, and when in his lifetime he always did contracts. He wants a contract. The other one is he's giving it as a gift. But in case any of the children later on or any family members dispute this, so he says to the Eidim, I want you to record this, so this person who's the beneficiary, my gift, should have evidence. So in other words, what I'm doing is this is not the Kenyan. I'm just using it as star raya. I'm just using it more because there's two kinds of stars. There's a star Kenyan and a star raya. This is more just to strengthen the position of the beneficiary. So I don't want after this person's death to be machlekes in the family. This will avoid machlekes. So if we see miyafas koich, and we'll soon see how do we know? Koich, we write it. Okay, so therefore now we know what Rabbi Yechon meant when he said check it out. Why he told them to record it in the start. Moshe Baba Mama body for a healthy person. Shama said kiss will write to give $100 for pliny, but Mason then he dies and koich once he's dead he can't give a start. So the Gemara wants to infer from here. Chivmara said koich v'noisim. You could. We just said a minute ago that even the Shchimar, if he says write down on a star and then he dies, you don't write it. So obviously, as Gemara will answer, he answers. It depends why he told him to write the star. If he told him to write, I want that to be the transaction, then once he's dead, he can't do it. But if he told him, I want you to record it so that you have, that he has evidence in his hand that I gave it to him as a matana, then do it even after his death, even after he died, because really he was already kind of straight away as soon as you said you verbalized it. Give him the $100. When he said, you write it down, it's just for his benefit. So then even though he passed away, you write it down. So the Gemara says, hey, Chidami, how do we know? From what words does he use that we can tell what his thoughts are? Maybe how can we tell? Says the Gemara, what the purpose, the intent is. If he says the following, the kanina minei moisif al matanta. If he uses the words, I want you to make this kinyan with him, in addition to the fact that I gave it to him as a gift. It's pretty clear. I gave it to him as a gift, but I also want to make a transaction to give him the star as a kinyan. So in other words, what's he really saying? This is to be miyafas. It's to strengthen him. Hachanami also the Omar. If he says af, if he says give him $100, and he says write down the star, that means he wants to start. But if he says give him $100 and also write in the star, the also means the hamatana is a valid matana, the gift. But I also want you to record it so that he has some evidence. But give it to him. Halacha is in that case you write it down, and even though he died already, since it's there only to support the beneficiary, you write it down. You write it down, you give it over. Stop over here. Continue, Mr.
Okay.
Have a good everybody.